where are you going in the NFC side of the ball that says, oh, yeah, that's a real threat to Philadelphia? I know you got to play all the games, but Philly is just stacked right now.
Hey, welcome into the Players Platform for BVM Sports. He is the great Mike Golic, the Hall of Famer. I'm Mike Hill. It's another kind of Mike and Mike. It's an ESPN reunion, one that I'm so happy to have my man Mike Golic with me, man. Days back at ESPN, ESPN Radio, and of course on NFL Live. It's good to see you, Golic.
Oh, good to see you, Mike. And I knew a Mike and Mike would come back at some point. I've been working with my son, Mike, so there's another Mike and Mike. I got like a 2.0, a 3.0, all kind of different Mike and Mikes. But, man, it is great to see you. It is a whole lot of us out in this industry that were teammates at ESPN, and now we're all out doing our thing, and it's a whole new world out there, that's for sure.
It certainly is, man. This is like a little salt and pepper edition. A little salt, a little pepper, in many ways. Salt and pepper here, a little salt and pepper with me and you as far as like, I'll be the pepper, you be the salt there.
There you go. I like that. And as far as our beards, yes, I know when we got to ESPN, we had all our normal color, but that kind of has faded away over the years. Time sure flies, and your face and your hair let you know just how much it flies.
But life after ESPN sure makes you feel younger, man. Hey, bro, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I want to get into the NFL draft first, because obviously you spent your career, most of your career with the Philadelphia Eagles. I know there's still a team that's near and dear to your heart, and the draft ended, and this is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and according to the experts, they aced this draft, man. They look good to have a guy like Jalen Carter to follow them. I know they moved up for him, but to get a guy like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in the first round, man, it is incredible what they did in this year's draft.
Well, normally you don't see a team that was in the Super Bowl have the 10th pick of the draft, so that was nice. It gave Howie Roseman some nice area to work with, and then they bob up that one spot for Jalen Carter. You know, we were doing mock drafts. I was at DraftKings, and there were a bunch of different people doing it, and I had to give my list of who Philly would take at 10, and I thought Jalen Carter would be gone. If they wanted the other edge guy and Tyree Wilson, I thought he would be gone. So I put Bijan Robinson down, saying, listen, they can afford that luxury. They lose Miles Sanders, 1,200 yards on the ground. Bring in Bijan. You know, I know they brought in Penny, but he has never played a full season healthy. So that's what I thought about. And then when Jalen Carter starts to drop in the real draft, I'm like, oh my God, okay, there's no way you pass this up. And they jump up that spot in the 9 slot to go ahead and grab him. I was like, what a win, because that was the story, right? Jalen Carter, is he going to fall? Would you draft him? And I was asked that many times. I'm like, hell yeah, because I'm going to think like a coach and say, I can work with what I got. I know he has the issues that we talked about. And the main thing, obviously, people lost their lives in that issue, in the situation he was part of it. And that's always got to be the headline. But then from the football side, if he goes to his pro day and he gained weight, couldn't finish drills. So I could see there being some question, but the talent is just incredible. So I thought that was a win. And then Nolan Smith, a pure edge guy as well. You lost Hargrave, so you fill it with Carter. Your edge guys are getting a little older, including Fletcher Cox in the middle. You do that, and then you get Ringo, the defensive back later on. You trade for DeAndre Swift. They have 6% of their roster is Georgia right now, and they are the first team in the common draft to select 5 defensive players from the same school in two consecutive drafs. A total of 5. So it's unreal. And it's got to be tough for Howie Roseman, who's a Florida grad, to have to.
I know, right? But, you know, he wants it as a professional. You got to do what's necessary for your job in order to keep that job. And it's good to see Howie Roseman having another phenomenal draft. And if you want to draft from a defense, that Georgia defense is the one to draft from. I mean, arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest defense of all time.
A couple of years ago, I was calling college games, and I called 2 of their games in 21 when all the guys that are on that defense in Philly were all teammates at Georgia. And I said this could be one of the great college defenses of all time, the way they play. And now, can you imagine if they're all on the field together? I mean, it is astounding, but this is a nice position to be in when you had been to the Super Bowl and you get not only an early pick, but 2 picks in the first round. Those could be luxury picks, fill out some depth, because I remember that very well when I was in Philadelphia. Listen, we had great players in Clyde Simmons, Jerome Brown, and Reggie White, great D linemen. But what helped make it all go was we could rotate. We had 6 or 7 D linemen where you could keep the legs fresh. So later in the game, Reggie was fresh, Jerome was fresh, Clyde was fresh, and you're beating up on old linemen who have been in the game 70, 80 plays. So building depth around on your D line is a very, very good thing. And you have some incredible playmakers now as well.
No, and the Eagles, I mean, that was the biggest strength last year, was getting to the quarterback, that defensive line, that front seven there. And to add a guy like Jalen Carter, although, like you mentioned, some of the off-the-field issues that you may have, how does that help a guy like Jalen Carter, where he's a top pick, arguably the best player available in the draft, according to Mel Kiper and a lot of those experts out there, but he goes to a team where they already had that as a strength, so they're not asking him to do too much, and he can actually kind of slide in there and just do the things he needs to do to become a great pro.
It's a monster point, because you look at a team like Houston that has C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. They did a nice job doing that, but those guys, the expectations are going to be high. Right? For the quarterback that's going to be the starter right away, for Will Anderson to get a bunch of sacks and pressures on defense. And you're right, for Philadelphia, you don't have to count on Jalen Carter to get 15 sacks. You don't have to, or a Nolan Smith. They can fit into what's going on in that defense. And you have Fletcher Cox for another year. When I talked to Jordan Davis last year after he got picked, he said he was really psyched about learning from Fletcher Cox. That's what I love to hear. My dad always told me this when I was a freshman in college, when I was a rookie in the NFL, a young player, keep your mouth shut and your ears and your eyes open. And a lot of times in today's sports, there are athletes that don't feel they need to do that and just go do their thing. I love when players, and Jordan Davis talked about it, he said, I want to learn from Fletcher Cox. You can be a pro when you're drafted, but that doesn't make you a professional. So these guys can learn from the elder statesmen in Philadelphia, and man, I think that was huge. But I thought overall, I still thought, they need some help with the running back position. Then they trade for DeAndre Swift, which was a good move for sure.
It sounds like you're saying that the Eagles are going to repeat as the NFC champions there, Golic, and not just NFC champions, maybe win it all next year.
And Mike, I mean, it's not like I'm saying it because I spent most of my career there. You look at the AFC, you can start listing teams and quarterbacks. That is a deep conference with teams that can represent and quarterbacks. Then you go to the NFC, Eagles are easily the best team, and Jalen Hurts is easily the best quarterback. Your list is not too far in the NFC. The 49ers probably are right there with talent that the Eagles have, but they got a monster quarterback situation going on with injured guys trying to come back to see what they could do. So name me that NFC team. Are we going with the Dallases again? Can they do any more in the playoffs? Where are you going in the NFC side of the ball that says, oh yeah, that's a real threat to Philadelphia? I know you got to play all the games, but Philly is just stacked right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that same question about Jalen Hurts, because I'm so happy for this guy. As somebody who watched a lot of his games when he was at Alabama and then when he transferred over to Oklahoma, I just always been in love with the way he plays the game and the way he carries himself on and off the field. So I'm so happy for him, and he deserves to have that contract. Now the expectations obviously are there. He took him to the Super Bowl last year. He gets that big, $255 million deal, I believe he got. And now being in Philadelphia is a different animal, right? You're saying he is the best quarterback in the NFC. And you look around the landscape, like you just mentioned, with Aaron Rodgers going to the New York Jets, is Dak, it's Kirk Cousins, maybe Stafford, Tyler Murray.
Had a big year, but I'm not putting Geno there. I'm not.
No. Obviously, he had a year. So the thing is, Jalen Hurts, you believe, is the best quarterback right now in the National Football Conference.
I absolutely think he is. And what he has done going into last year's season, we talked about a few quarterbacks who now had to show their team what they could do. It was Jalen, it was Tua, it was Daniel Jones with the Giants as well. And listen, Tua was on his way to showing everybody that until, he got his head bounced off the turf a couple of times, and the team handled it horribly, and now he's missing a bunch of games to where Miami's questioning long-term there, and I understand it. So he didn't get that deal, but Daniel Jones proved himself to the deal, and everybody complaining, he shouldn't be paid that much. Hell no, you deserve to get paid what someone's willing to pay you. That's what your worth is, what someone is willing to pay you. And Jalen obviously proved it as well, which ended up setting up the domino of Lamar. Lamar Jackson getting his deal done a little bit more than Jalen, which will then be the kind of the base for a Justin Herbert and a Joe Burrow as well going up. So, but I mean, again, we've named all the quarterbacks. Are you taking any NFC quarterback right now over Jalen Hurts? I'll listen to the argument. Sure as hell I'm not.
The way Jalen Hurts played last year, played at the MVP level, took his team to the Super Bowl last year. Look, I say if Kyler Murray can get it together and get it right and play that team concept, I think he's got the skill set there. Dak obviously has his ups and downs being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Matthew Stafford, I think he was injured last year, but this is a guy who also won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago as well, so I'm not going to forget about that. But like you mentioned, the NFC, I think, if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick Jalen Hurts for all the right reasons, especially being a team quarterback. But in the landscape of overall, Golic, if you look at a lot of these 20-something quarterbacks, you're talking about the Patrick Mahomes, you just mentioned Justin Herbert, you talked about the Joe Burrows of the world. Where do you think Jalen stacks up in the mix of top 10 quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, so you sit there and look at the AFC. You have Josh Allen. I'm just going through Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers now, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson, we really don't have any idea if he's going to get back to what he was. You look at, where we go, Mahomes.
Herbert. If Lamar is healthy and he plays,
right,
Lamar
Jackson. Herbert, we'll see if why am I drawing up? Russell Wilson can come back a little bit and have Jacksonville as well. Why am I drawing a blank on that now? All of a sudden, Lawrence, Trevor
Lawrence. Yep.
You got a stack of quarterbacks in the AFC, but the way Jalen Hurts played last year, you got to put him in the top 5, right? Because of all the quarterbacks I mentioned in the AFC. I don't think anybody in that, and I'm quickly just doing it in my head. Well, Lamar Jackson can add that added value of running, and not just scrambling, but planned runs where you are dangerous when you are running the ball. Josh Allen can run the ball as well. So that's the thing now, is not getting a running quarterback per se, but the way we're working now is getting a quarterback that has the ability to make plays out of the pocket, whether with their legs or with their arm.
Okay. All right. I love that answer, man. I love what he's saying. All right. I'm going to play a quick little game, what you call a boom or bust when it comes to these quarterbacks. I'm talking about some of these quarterbacks who may be coming off of maybe not the greatest season last year and looking to bounce back this year, but they're really good quarterbacks. Let's start off with, you talked about Russell Wilson in Denver. This season with the new coach he got in there, of course, is it a boom or bust for Russell Wilson with Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos?
It was so bad last year that I have to believe it's a boom, that he's going to get better. Now, whether they can compete in the AFC, we'll see, but it has to be better than last year. You had Nathaniel Hackett, a guy that he got overmatched pretty quickly, and now he won and done. And now you have Sean Payton, and it really is a pretty proven track record. So I'll go boom on that one.
Okay, how about Aaron Rodgers? Now he's left the Green Bay Packers, rebirth with the New York Jets. A lot of expectations for the Jets, boom or bust.
So I'll say again, because his year, I did a few of their games last year for Westwood One, and he uncharacteristically was off a bit as he was getting to know those young receivers, but by the end was playing a little bit better. And I called that last game against Detroit when all they had to do was win and they were in, and Detroit ends up beating them. But I'll say boom there. He seems to be a little bit rejuvenated. I like the receivers there. They're helping out the old line to protect him a little bit. So I'll go boom there.
Okay. Lamar Jackson finally got his quarterback. He got his extension, I should say, with the Baltimore Ravens. Comes in there. They gave him some wide receivers. He got a lot of good offseason for the Ravens when it came to weapons for him. Boom or bust for him and with the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, listen, for him, stay healthy, and that would be a boom, right? But getting Zay Flowers and I loved him. Steve, how about the tweet from Antonio Brown? with the jersey on, thinking he's going to be there. Like, come on, dude, you're not going there. No, I like what they've given him. They still have Andrews as well. So
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, Odell Beckham. Aaron Rodgers had to be looking at them going, look what the hell they're doing. Green Bay, why can't do that? Oh, by the way, I was just in the Jets draft and they didn't do it either. Draft quarterback. So I hate to, keep doing it on the positive side, but I'll say boom because I like what they put around them.
All right, so let's go to the Cowboys. Last one, Dak Prescott, boom or bust.
Man, he's another one. I did the opening game against Tampa Bay where he hurt his thumb. I'm a Dak fan. Do they have enough around him? CeeDee Lamb did a nice job as a number one. I loved Pollard. They finally gave the ball more to Pollard like they should have. Dak threw a lot of interceptions. That was a big thing there. Maybe I'm doing it out of the fact that, I'm a former Eagle. And the line's still getting a little older. They're trying to young it up a little bit. I'm going to say bust on that one. And the interceptions really hurt him. He's got to get rid of that. And we'll see, if they could stay healthy, which they've had trouble doing over the last couple of years. That's
a good one right there, man. All right, love that. All right, let's move on from NFL to your alma mater. Of course, your whole family went to Notre Dame, fighting Irish. I like Marcus Freeman. They obviously got off to a rough start last year, losing to Ohio State. Lost to Marshall, really hurt them, but then they bounced back late in the season, came back, had a good season. They got Sam Hartman. I forgot he transfer portal. As good as he was at Wake coming over there, they got a really good quarterback. What are your prospects for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish this year?
Well, first and foremost, I think that you had those bad losses to Marshall and Stanford. When they lost to Stanford, Stanford's only win at that point had been Colgate. So those were bad losses. That's the first thing that's got to go under the Marcus Freeman regime. It's the second year now. Players are used to him. They had some turnover in the staff, obviously, but still, it's kind of the same setting. So you're not learning all the new things now as you go into your second year under him. You actually have a passing quarterback now in Sam Hartman, which, remember, last year they played just the entire season with a backup quarterback in Drew Pine before Tyler Buckner, the starter, came back in the bowl game, and now he has since jumped in the portal, and he's going to Alabama, and Drew Pine left for Arizona State. I'm a Hartman fan. I think 110. He's been in the college for 5 years or whatever, 4 or 5. He's got like 110 touchdown passes, but he can throw the ball, and that's something Irish fans knew. If you got down a couple of scores, you were in trouble. Because we didn't have that probably the last time we had a passer was Brady Quinn, Jimmy Clausen time before Sam Hartman. So high expectation. You got a lot of young, really good receivers. You're picking up the slack for Michael Mayer, but you have a number of tight ends to fill the slot. Excellent running backs. The old line has to fill a couple of spots. I'm a big fan of Marcus Freeman, but the first thing that needs to happen is you can't lose to those teams you shouldn't lose to. And I don't mean a team that's kind of close to your favorite, kind of close. You can't lose to Marshall. You can't lose to a Stanford team that wasn't very good. Those are losses that you have to say, all right, we're better than this team. We have to win these games. And I get it. Every now and then you have a let up, but that's one of the first things that has to go is you can't be giving away those kind of games.
Right. You got to clean that up, man. Like you said, you can't lose to Marshall, a Stanford team that had only won one game. Losing to USC is one thing. Losing to Ohio State early in the season, Ohio State's such a great team. You had high expectations coming to the season and have that start, and then they finish strong. So hopefully they'll get it right going into the next season. I actually started liking Notre Dame. I'm going to tell you why as I made this transition. Because of you. Because, and I still hate Philadelphia. Don't get me wrong. Look,
I see it.
Look, I still hate I can't. I'm sorry. I love Jalen Hurts. I love what they do. I love the way they play, but I cannot root for them. But I'm going to tell you why, man, because Golic, I would not be in this position if it wasn't for the efforts of you and people like you. I would not be at Fox Sports. It'll be in a month or two. I'll be at Fox Sports for 10 years. I would not have had my ESPN radio show if it wasn't for you, Mike Golic. So I want to give you your flowers, my man. I don't know if you noticed or not, but the reason I got an opportunity to actually go on the radio at ESPN was because of you. Because you made the suggestion. I didn't even know you liked me like that. I know we did some shows on NFL Live. But I remember getting a call from, I can't remember the guy's name, the executive of ESPN Radio. And he said that, hey, man, you ever thought about doing radio? Because Mike Golic says that you'd be pretty good doing radio. And I'm like, what? And I know we've had some conversations, whatever, but I didn't know that you would put in that suggestion. So I want to say thank you, bro, because had it not been for you doing that, I would not have gotten my radio show with Mark Schlereth on ESPN Radio. Had it not been for that ESPN radio show, the executives at Fox Sports would not have liked me that much, because they told me, they said they didn't like what I was doing on television. They liked what I was doing on ESPN Radio, which led to this point in my career. So I want to give you your flowers, man, and say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're a good guy. You've always looked out for other people, man, and I will always be a Mike Golic fan.
Well, I mean, personally, I don't like you, but I just thought you would be good on the radio. So that's why it was all for the show. No, it was one of those things, Mike, where radio, and I think you could be, people are better. I was better on TV because of radio. Mm-hmm. Now, TV, because we know the one shots, the quicker answers, the clock, you have to be more succinct at everything. But I think it also helps you work on the fly. Radio is so off the cuff. And the one thing I really enjoy about you is you're very conversational. And in studio shows, NFL Live, I mean, you go to the analyst, he does a one shot, you go back. I never liked that. I always liked it to be a conversation, whether it's with another analyst or with a host. I would have the same thing at times with Trey, but you were all very conversational. And I thought it's one of the very few things they actually listened to me when I made a suggestion was different co-host. I said, I think he could carry the show because he's a conversation. He has great opinions, but he'll just talk, nothing flustered you. So that was what you needed for radio, to just make it conversational and just us talking to people, not at people. And I thought you'd have been great at that, and you were, and you are. So, I listen, I appreciate the accolades you're throwing my way, but you would have gotten there somehow, some way. It was just a matter of getting, in that position to be seen, to say, oh, hell, this guy's got a lot of talent.
But let me tell you something, and I appreciate you saying that. But you know what? We all need what I call Oprahs along the way. And when Oprah had her show, she said, "Hey, I like Dr. Oz. I like Dr. Phil." Yep. All of a sudden, Dr. Oz, who had a lot of skills before all the crazy stuff that's going on, but Dr. Phil or a Yanya Van Zandt or Rachel Ray or whoever, if she said she liked that or she read your book, all of a sudden you would be catapulted. You had a lot of cachet, and you still have a lot of cachet in this business, but at ESPN Radio, you had an iconic radio show with Mike Greenberg, and that type of endorsement helps people. So I want to talk to you about that, man, just in this business, and we've been in this business for a long time. You're a broadcast Hall of Famer. Like, how important is that, man, to not only be good at what you do, but be good people so that people can give you that opportunity or endorse you, or still, even if you've gotten things along the way and you've been able to establish and build your career, how important it is to bring others along with you to help them out with theirs.
Well, a lot of that comes from my sports background of always having to work for it. Now, in high school, I was the high school All-American, a high recruit going into college and such, but college had to work my way up. NFL, I played 9 years, but I was a 10th round draft pick. My son Mike was undrafted. So I learned, and I tried to pass on to my kids, that work ethic of, you never know where the next job is. So, you got to put the time and the effort in. When I first got into radio, was local in Arizona, and now I'm talking NBA, baseball, hockey. While I know athletes and what they think, I got to know more of what's going on the field and such. So you put your time in doing that. And the other thing especially my dad taught me was, when that microphone goes on, you have to just be yourself. If you try and put on an act every time the mic goes on, people are going to figure you out. So I have always been, and again, this comes from my parents, a team first kind of guy. What's going to be best for the team? When I studied film or prepared, what's going to help us most as a team to get to our objectives. Now, I also was not a superstar where the game rested on my shoulders either. So this is the kind of way I went about it. So anytime during shows, TV shows, radio shows, when there was a thought of, okay, how about this person or that person, I would say, okay, I think they can help this team, to go to the next level. Or if it's just a fill-in, I think we're not going to skip much of a beat when we bring this person in because I like the way they interact. So it was always about what's going to be best for the show, not necessarily for me, but I always thought if the show did well, it would work out well for me as well. So, I mean, that was kind of always been my philosophy. And I love talking to younger people about getting into this business because I had zero experience. I did a piece on the Randall Cunningham show in Philadelphia called Golics Got It that won like a local Emmy. And that's what made ESPN bring me in while I was still playing. And I was dumbfounded by that. I had no education in that. So I've just lived the life of being myself and trying to surround people on the show that I thought could really help the show. You were certainly one of those people as well. So that's just kind of how I've been. I was always going to be myself. As I've always said, you know what? Some will like it, some will hate it. That's just the way it is.
You never know the path that the higher spirit brings you down. And so I once again say appreciate you, man. When you look back, and I'm gonna wrap it up soon, but when you look back and you look at the accomplishments that you been able to make over your careers. Now, of course, you had a 9-year NFL career. Do you kind of feel like, okay, you become like sort of like George Foreman in a sense. George Foreman, great boxer, right? Hall of Fame boxer, right. Known more for his grill. You know what I mean? It's like now you played great, seasons in the NFL, like you said, 10th round pick, but now you're known as this great Hall of Fame broadcaster. I know you're proud of both of them, but when you look at the trajectory of your career and the path of your career, what goes to your head when you think about it in that perspective?
Well, first thing is I would have rather had the grill. That have brought me a hell of a lot more money. That's for sure. As far as the path, it was pretty wild. I mean, I did not expect this when ESPN first approached about doing a morning, radio show. Because my first host was Tony Bruno, even before Greeny, and then it was Greeny, and then Trey and my son Mike. I still say the most I enjoyed it. While the times with Greeny were great. What doors it opened? We got to go to the White House to have dinner at the White House. We got to be on David Letterman 11 times. I mean, it was the doors that opened were incredible, and it was a great run. But I will say the most fun I had was doing the show with my son. When for those 3 years after Mike and Mike ended, it was me, Trey, and my son. That was the most fun. And we still work together now some, but turning the mic on at 6 a.m, and having your son sitting next to you was a really cool thing, and I thought he'd be a little more, genuflect in front of me a little more, but, he didn't. He went after my butt right away. I thought, right. I thought, wait, where's the old father impart your wisdom on me? Dude had his own opinions, and it was great. So to be able to turn that mic on and be with him for those 4 hours for 3 years was, I don't know many parents that would say that wasn't one of the great experiences that they've had. So to me, the journey was unexpected. I remember when Greeny took the job, he made sure he still had he had just started doing some stuff on SportsCenter. And he's like, SportsCenter is the wheelhouse here. I don't know how long this Mike and Mike thing is going to last. Make sure I'm doing SportsCenter 18 years later, we're still doing the show. So that was that was a pretty wild experience, but it opened a lot of doors. I didn't expect it. When I first moved from Arizona to Bristol to do the show with Tony Bruno, within a year, Tony left, and I was like, oh my God, I just moved my entire family out to Bristol, Connecticut, and the guy I'm doing the show with left ESPN. What the hell am I going to do now? And it looks like it worked out pretty well, though.
See, and once again, that's all I tell people all the time is sometimes there's a lesson into what you feel like is a burden actually turns out to be a blessing. The fact that Tony Bruno left, I'm pretty sure Bruno and you would have an iconic show as well, but that you and Greeny seemed to work out just like a great mix. It just so happened that way. And not to bring up anything negative, but the way it ended with you and Greeny for that to end, but you have the opportunity then to have to on national radio to wake up in the morning to work with your son and with the great Trey Wingo. I mean, that is a blessing in all itself. So no matter what doors get closed, sometimes the doors that open are even better for you. So I'll tell people all the time, when I was let go at ESPN, I was able to come out here to LA and my life changed dramatically. So when you look back at that though, man, and you look at how iconic you and Greeny were on that show, like you said, Radio Hall of Fame, going to the White House and everything you did and all that, do you reflect and you say, my God, man, we had one of the greatest shows of all time, and how proud are you of that?
Well, I'm extremely proud, and I'll let others decide how great the show was. But the one thing that I enjoyed, Greeny and I, Greeny didn't have kids at that point when we started in 2000. I had all three of mine. Mike was 10, Jake was 9, Sydney, I think, was 6. So we always knew when we started doing the show, it was going to be a family-type show. One of the things I'm most proud of is when we do our show on the road, so many women would come up and say, you know what? I appreciate I don't have to turn the dial when I'm driving my kid to school that you guys are going to cross a line. You know, maybe we were a little vanilla. We weren't this, you know, we're certainly weren't the yelling type, which seems to be all the rage now today. We didn't do that. I was a player. He was a journalist. You know, I was an athlete. He wasn't an athlete. We played upon all that, and it worked out really well. You know, so I'm very proud of that. What else helped, Mike, and is the time as well. So back in 2000, remember, we weren't in the Twitter world we are right now. So as a matter of fact, when Greeny and I started, we weren't even on in Hartford, Connecticut, where ESPN is. So our bosses couldn't even listen to us yet. So we were able to kind of work through, you know, the beginning, the bumps and stuff, to by the time more people could hear us, we started doing well, and then they put us on TV. And quite honestly, my biggest fear when they put us on TV, and you know this, you do a studio TV show and you got to wear a coat and tie. Yeah. So the first thing I said to them is, wait a minute. You're putting us on TV. Do I have to wear a coat and tie? And they said, no. It's radio on TV. I said, oh, thank God, you know, that I didn't have to do that. Now it's tougher. I mean, the guys come in. I even said this when they were ending, when me and Trey and Mike were going to end. It was in July of 20 during the pandemic. And I said this to the powers that be. I said, listen, it's unfair to the new morning show. At that point, it was Zubin and Jay Will and Keyshawn. I said, to me, it's unfair to put them guys out there without really working on anything. Or before me and Greeny started, we traveled to affiliates. Before me, Trey, and Mike started, we traveled to affiliates and had kind of a rollout. Those guys didn't. I told the bosses, I said, listen, you're doing them a disservice, because nowadays, first impression is huge, right? Because there's so many different ways you could go by listening or watching in the morning. I said, let me and Mike and maybe Jason Fitz or whoever do the show for one more year until we get through the COVID. And then if you want this new morning show, give them time to ramp up. Let them go to affiliates and get known a little bit and work together for a little bit. But, you know, that's not the way they wanted to go. And I thought that was unfair to that morning group, because that's one thing Greeny and I had. We had a lot of runway to work out a lot of kinks before it really hit.
Yeah, well, they should have listened to you in a lot of ways, man. Well, the way it ended, and like I said, I keep it positive. No, you said in 2020, you recorded saying it really isn't a relationship anymore. I'm not going to ask you where it is now and all that type of stuff, because it's your business. But if you could have changed anything about the way it ended, how would it have been better for your show to end? Obviously, not being acrimonious or anything like that, but if you could have done anything differently yourself, because we have to say onus for ourselves sometimes, what would you have done?
Well, I think I think how it all went down would have helped to where everybody was kind of upfront about everything, and that really didn't happen. So there was kind of a lot of tension behind the scenes because of that. I mean, as I've said all the time, I don't begrudge Greeny for wanting to go do his own thing. I mean, that's fine. We were together a long time. I just wish it would have been communicated that way by everybody and said, okay, this is the direction we're going to go. So we're all on the same page. This was to be behind closed doors, but I'm a big face-to-face guy. Let's have that meeting. Let's say I may disagree. I may not have wanted it. I didn't want the show to end, but I understand people have choices, and this is the route it was going to go. So maybe because this was all decided, Mike, a year and a half before the show actually ended. So that's a long time to go when things didn't really go well.
And you didn't know that for a year and a half? It was, when did you find?
I knew it wasn't, I knew the show was going to be over.
Okay.
And the way it was being handled, there was a lot of tension behind the scenes, not so much on air, not at all on air. We tried to put on a show. We're professionals. We put on a show. So I think like anything else, especially after a run that long, that we were all on the same page and we could have had that, okay, this is the last year of Mike and Mike. Let's enjoy it. Let's go out and do some road trips. Let's kind of celebrate this thing that lasted like 18 years and seemed to be pretty successful. And let's kind of do it that way to where it's like we lead up to a party ending, instead of, unfortunately, the ending that it was where, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. And listen, Greedy and I, when we see each other, we're fine. Even when we did the show, and I've said this many times, we lived an hour and a half from one another. He had no kids when the show started. I had kids. So we didn't have a lot in common that way. But on air, it worked so well. But the distance between us, there was a lot of geographically and where we were in our lives were different spots. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity to hang out. We did on the road and stuff. We got along just fine, without question. And like I said, when we see each other now, we make sure we ask how the kids are doing, how everything's going. We can see how each other's careers are going. So, from that, I guess it's a horrible thing to say, and I hate when people say it, but it is what it is now. It didn't end the greatest. I wish it would have ended better, but at some point, like I've done, and like Greeny has done, you don't look in the rearview mirror anymore, right? You got to look forward and look to what's next.
Always doing class. And what's next and what's present for you right now, Golic and Smetty, DraftKings, a podcast. You mentioned the way sports is being presented these days with all the debate shows. There used to be, like you said, conversations is something that we enjoy, like family friendly, not necessarily arguments, but conversations about, you talk about the controversial topics, but you talk about it, you don't yell and scream about it. When you look at the landscape of what's being presented out there, and what's being consumed and what wants to be consumed by the audiences out there and what you're trying to put on there, how do you navigate that landscape? How do you give the people a little bit of that debate, that argument, that little fury a little bit, but at the same time, keep it classy?
I can understand where you need to bend a little bit to if this is what the people want to hear, but you can never leave from being yourself. I could not have lasted that long yelling and screaming and arguing. Some people can. Listen, Stephen A is phenomenal, but that's truly how he is.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can't put on an act. That's how he is. And sometimes the greatest audiences, the largest audiences, are because people either love you or hate you. But either way, they want to listen to you, right? So I guess that's what I always tell young people when they want to get into this. I said, be yourself. I said, be cognizant of where you are in the sports society and what's being talked about. Don't be afraid to dive into debate and get after it a little bit, but don't do it as an act every day. We never, ever in our shows did Greeny and I or Tony and I or Trey or Mike and I say, okay, I'm going to take this side, you take that side, and let's have at it. We never did that. We're not going to fake stuff like that. So again, I was fortunate that our style fit at the time. How it would fit now, there'd still be a sector of the audience that would enjoy that, but there are people that like the debate, and that's fine. But I guess my biggest point is don't try and be something you're not, what I would tell people, because as I said before, you turn that mic on and you try and put on an act, people are going to figure you out, and you're going to get exhausted trying to do something like that.
Well, Mike Golic, thank you for being you, because who you are is a hell of a person, man. And I know I appreciate it, and I know the audience in the world appreciates you being you, man. So thank you for hanging out with me, man. It's always been a pleasure to catch up with you and talk to you, man. And I wish you the best of luck and blessings in everything you do, my brother.
Thanks, Mike. I look forward to us chatting again, and just keep it going. Like always. I said, there's a lot of us former ESPNers out there that are doing pretty well. So we just keep crossing paths. We're in good shape.
We need to start our own network, man. Life after ESPN.
That'd be cool.